We begin part 2 of the Karma and Rebirth super course. In part 1, we talked about karma. In part 2, we talk about its relationship and interconnectedness with rebirth. To understand karma is to understand rebirth. And to understand rebirth, one must know karma. The Blessed One said, I have passed in ignorance through a cycle of many rebirths, seeking the builder of the house. Continuous rebirth is a painful thing, but now, house builder, I have found you out. You will not build me a house again. All your rafters are broken, your ridge poles shattered. My mind is free from active thought and has made an end of craving. What an excellent way to put it. To illustrate this, I think the best analogy is something as simple as bubbles, like soap suds. In this context, the bubbles would represent the body, and the air inside would represent what we call the soul. In reality, the soul is simply what is, you might call, the essence or the ether. It is not a thing that exists temporally. It exists in the same way that computer code exists. It is the form behind the fact. It is what the Stoics in Bible times called the Logos. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That is Stoic doctrine, and it simply means the form behind the fact, like a blueprint behind the house. So if you think about it, when you die, you never really go anywhere because the information that made you up, the happenstance of all variations, of all of the choices you could have made and did make, the life review that you did in your mind, all of that forms an essence of sorts. That is called the Akashic Records, the form behind the fact. The great grand architect of the universe and the blueprints thereof are what, as you might refer to them, are the ultimate data collection in the cosmos. It may be hard to think of for us to think about that, but when you think about existence of human beings or any life form, you should think of them in terms of the data, in terms of the possibilities of data that make them up in whatever form they're in. That's hard to do. But the best analogy is bubbles, like soap suds. That would represent the body. The soul is the data and the cause and effect, clockwork efficiency of everything that goes into making you, from the things that happen to you to the things that you do. Those, of course, are your essence. What do we refer to as death, hell, and heaven? Death is that event that ends your making of experiences. And the reason you experience death has everything to do with your ability to make experiences. When you're born, it is your entire purpose, inevitable even, to make new experiences. That's what life is. You are born and you exist because it is your job to make experiences for the divine complex, for the grand architect. If you want to use the term God in the West, you can. It is the Tao. It is the great experience maker. Because the one thing God cannot do in pure raw form is to not know. But you possess the ability to not know, to not understand the end or the outcome of the game. And that is what makes you so wonderful and so powerful, because you do what the gods cannot. You are the completion of the puzzle. You are the unknown. You are the variable that is, by definition, the Yetzirah, the ability to choose without a static path. The legend goes in Jewish mystic literature that when God created Adam, he created in him the Yetzirah, the ability to make a choice that is not predetermined. It took a special creation from God to do that. But death is just the opposite of that, the inability to make new experiences. And you die as a result of that. Your body, every year you get older, you make less experiences, which is why you get the impression of time going by faster. Time goes by faster because each year represents a smaller portion of your life, and by the time you're 70 or 80, if you make it that long, you have made fewer and fewer experiences. As a result, death comes upon you. and for other reasons, but that is one. Basically, the divine has constructed everything this way because this is the best way and most diverse way to create the best bang for its buck in terms of creation of experiences. And experience is the only reality. All of Buddhism has no qualms there, no disagreements there. It is the one ultimate truth that all Buddhist sects will agree on. Even if you're not Buddhist, you will understand, you must eventually come to understand that it is the sum total experience of reality that is the only true reality. Nothing outside can be said to exist. Hell is that which we call dying with unresolved issues. All of these things are states of consciousness: death, hell, heaven, and rebirth. They are all states of consciousness, and they do not rely upon anything, including a so-called spirit, to go from body to body. Rebirth is not reincarnation. You can play semantics, you can play whatever you want kind of game, but ultimately rebirth is just the reacquisition in a bubble, like air floating until it is captured again in a new bubble. And of course the things that you acquire, you don't know the percentage. If you could examine the air within a bubble, you'd find that it's oxygen, nitrogen, that it has little bits of pollution, that it has all sorts of different things. Well, that is what determines us. Hell is the state of suffering that we create for ourselves based on our actions. Heaven is nibbana, or nirvana, as they say in transliterated to English. And it means a state of peace, a state of belonging, the understanding that everything is perfect as it is right now. You have attained nirvana when you have attained enlightenment, and you understand that all things are perfect. You've transcended the cycles of death and birth, and you understand because your consciousness has fully matured. You have no unresolved issues. You are at perfect peace. I won't now because we don't have time, but I can talk all day about how to obtain this, but ultimately obtaining it is a state of mind. It requires the wisdom to see what we're talking about here. Hell then is suffering of the mind. Heaven is contentment within the mind brought about by wisdom. And rebirth is the state that comes from clinging. Buddha said in the Second Noble Truth, you suffer because you cling. You hold on to the world, you hold on, and you see yourself as identifying with certain states of being. You look at the things around you and you say, this is me. This is who I am. And as a result, you suffer. Therefore, you are reborn. But all of these are states of consciousness, and that is what rebirth is. It is the acquiring of consciousness that over many lifetimes. Now, rebirth is the thing that you experience, as we mentioned, if you have more to work out. If you don't, there's no point in staying in this reality. You transcend it, because the piece of the puzzle, the information code that you were, has found its completed state. And it has nothing to do except to return to the divine, which is the completed code, the ultimate puzzle. On the right there, you can see from the original charter episode of Star Trek, Where No Man Has Gone Before, you can see Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell, who went through the Great Barrier along with the good doctor there. Her name escapes me. And Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell was infused with the essence of zero. When I first saw that episode, I saw Gary Mitchell's eyes light up, and he became, when they crossed the barrier, a hellish being that was of infinite power, growing toward infinite power. And the longer he lived, the more powerful he became. And I thought all through when this was on TV as a child, I would think, wow, that's really a terrible thing that they could not remove this essence from him. Kirk and Spock and the entire Enterprise were seeking to banish this creature within him, but they didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to treat it. There's no way to treat it because Gary, if you recall from the show, had high ESPs. He had unusual abilities. He was like a clairvoyant of sorts. And as a result, when he went through the Great Barrier, they didn't know that was actually the prison of zero. Zero was the enemy of the Q continuum, equal in power and perhaps even more so, and phenomenally ferocious and terrible. And that essence infused with Gary Mitchell, which made him ultimately become a monster. And you'll recall they had to maroon him on the planet's surface and just let him be, because he was so incredibly powerful that there was no dealing with him. And you'll recall from the episode, Spock says we have to get rid of him because in 1 month's time, the entire ship will be like a ship full of white mice. We'll be such an annoyance that it won't even matter. It would be like just cockroaches running around your feet. You're a bug to him, so easily squashed that there's nothing you can do. Well, if you want to learn more about that, you can read the original writings of Gene Roddenberry on how this was conceived. But actually, although it was never played out at the time, the Q continuum had to imprison Zero in what was called the Great Barrier, and the crew at the Enterprise at the time did not know that, which is what created what made this so amazing. But when I thought back on this through the years, look at how it's that way with the terrible things that go around in life. Parents are put off by their children doing cruel and evil things. I know parents who've had children who were just mean and cruel, and yet they had another sibling or child that were just fantabulously good, and the other one is just catastrophically evil. They had the same raising. What is it about a child that can make them mean, can make them cruel, can make one a saint and the other an outlaw? Well, it's amazing, of course, how I'm using sci-fi to illustrate this, because very often we find our science fiction is a perfect parallel for our truthful reality, or what we call truth in our reality. It's the essence. It's like talking to a child that, children can grow astray and out of ignorance just not listen to their parents. But then there are times when a child is infused with a spirit of rebellion or defiance or deceit or deception. And it comes not from one thing. It doesn't come from teaching. It doesn't come from home raising. All of those things are contributors to the path, to the karma, the parent's karma and the child's karma. But evil in a child or good in a child is something that is karmic. And this is where you go back to part 1 and you look at all of the examples I gave of how instilling in a child the things that you create are part of the karma of another generation. So when we look at past karma and we see outlaws and we see the saints and we see the great humanitarians and we see the great businessmen and the conquerors and the rulers, all of these things have a very larger than life explanation. And that explanation you call karma. Your essence, your memory, and your information attaches to you in this sense. And in that sense, you have past lives. You are the carryover of those of your parents, those who came before you, but also perhaps many others. I know that a lot of people, especially celebrities in Hollywood who are very new agey, tend to muck this up by giving a lot of nonsense. And they create a lot of confusion when they say, well, I was Henry VIII in a past life or something like that. I wish they wouldn't say things like that because, one, it's unproven and unprovable, and doesn't make a lot of sense because there's always going to be a lot of confusion on such matters. But it's never clear like that. You are the sum essence of many different beings. Properly understood, you are the essence of what came before you. And sometimes, very often in fact, it's easier to leave it in that state of unknowing. Because the more you try to find out about past lives, the more murkier you become in the territory you trek through. So that's enough about that for now. Thailand, let me talk about artwork in Thailand, because in the Asian countries have a different understanding of more fundamental understanding of spirit. When you look at a picture overseas, they understand that the picture has a spirit. But it's interesting to note that they never fully distinguish between a spirit like a spirit of mind, a state of mind, and an immortal spirit. They don't even believe in an immortal spirit. They don't believe that there's something inside of you that with angel wings that floats around. They don't believe that. They believe that the sum total of your experiences and the essence that came before you, the essence of the painter of a painting, the essence of a creator of artwork, that instills in you a spirit. And that's, my friends, is very powerful. Because once you understand that truth, you understand spirit a lot more clearly than people in the West do, who think that there is something immortal about you. The thing that is immortal about you is the one consciousness that all human beings share. And if you could strip away from you all of the differences, your demographics, your upbringing, your genetics, the fears, the fact that you got beat up in 5th grade and your lunch money got stolen, if you could strip all of that away, you would find that we are the same consciousness, the ultimate self, the Brahman. That is the only thing that is truly eternal. And it existed as the sum total of all possible worlds. It's the Akashic records, the ultimate divine construct, the form behind the fact, the Logos, the thing that in the beginning was. Do you understand your essence now? Do you understand what is reborn now? It is not the ego. The ego is the lie, the construct, the thing you go about believing is here but is never actually real. It's the lie. It's the matrix, the thing that is around you that has no reality. The thing beneath that, the Tao, the great construct, the ultimate coming together of all things, that is really you. You are a small manifestation of that. And that is what is reborn. Now, friends, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not trying to convert or deconvert you. I'm trying to make a point. The same way an artist plays a song and wants everybody to hear it because they're high on the song. In the same sense here, when I defend rebirth, I'm defending it in that sense. The evidences for rebirth are many, but again, I'm not trying to sell you or convert you. You just look around you and you will find that the evidence for everything I'm saying is there. Gender dysphoria in the modern world. The U.S., where I am, is completely torn apart by the liberal versus conservative battle on why a person should be accepted because of their gender. I'm not here to talk about what side position you should hold on it, because there's not one. But many, many people struggle because in past lives they identified as female, and that compelled them to be in a situation where they channeled that into this life. So you will find males and females that don't identify as who they are. You literally see it everywhere around you and in every culture, even before the modern times. So it can't be just written off as just a freak mental illness or a trend, a social clique that's kind of on the rise. It's been here all around for forever. Waking up, speaking other languages, there are actual stories of this. The drive to follow a particular life path, as I gave an example of a child that becomes a criminal. I'm thinking of one serial killer, and the name escapes me, who said, if you let me out today, I would go and kill and cannibalize a human before me. And, I'm thinking of a guy who would cannibalize young women and rape them and kill them. How horrible. How awful. Why would he do that? He had no reason to do that. There was nothing in his life to do that. Well, all of these things are manifestations of essence, of what the ancients would call hungry ghosts, beings that were pictured in old art with ghostly sheet appearances with tiny little pinpoint mouths. They could never crave enough. And whether it's true or not, you don't have to concern yourself with. But instead, you understand that the point is made. It's true regardless of any of the symbolism used to teach. The same way sci-fi is true regardless of the fact that it's mostly false. So let's look at some case studies here. A ghetto kid commits crime and is eventually locked up. Bottom right. He's standing with other prisoners. He has followed the influence of his father lacking home and began to steal cars and deal drugs. As a result, he was penalized and was locked up for it. He eventually made parole. It was his first offense, but now he has a criminal record. He goes back out, and he finds that despite his desire to improve, his old past, his old habits come and find him. His old running buddies come and find him, and he's back into the temptation to break into cars and steal. But he tells himself, I've got to reform. And that is met by the fact that it's hard to find a good job because he now has a criminal record. As a result, his old life calls him back. And his karma, his bad karma, is pulling him back. So you see the manifestation of karma here. Top left, CEO dumping toxic waste and lying about it on the stand. A corrupt individual decides he doesn't want to pay the fees, decides to dump out toxic waste that harms many by putting them in water and supplies and causing illness, and lies about it. It isn't until the end of his life or another life that he finally is made to account for that. An absentee father, the father who's always about work, never comes home, doesn't spend much time. Wife eventually cheats on him, son or daughter goes astray. He's all about work, but he thinks he's a good father. He struggles, and despite trying everything, he's all about work because he doesn't know he's not connecting. He's not being present in the moment, and therefore does not like spending time at home. He finds it a convenient excuse to rely on his work to keep his mind occupied, although he himself does not realize that. Top right, a case of fetal alcohol syndrome. A mother waywardly fights to battle her alcohol addiction, but ultimately gives in and succumbs to that lust while pregnant. A child is born underweight and with crucial health problems that will follow him or her for the rest of their life. Folks, in all of these are just a small sampling of examples where you see how karma is pervasive. And it invades not only incidents in a person's life, not only things that a person does, but it serves as being internal within the individual. The things that you manifest in your life are things that you yourself didn't prevent from happening. It goes not just from the things that happen to you, but to your motivation. And in that sense, you are your karma. It's not one event. It's not one thing. It is your entire life path, your entire sum of experiences that manifest in behaviors that dominate your life and the things that happen to you. Like the layers of an onion, your karma runs deep. This is very disheartening sometimes because on the quest for wisdom, you find that all of the things in your life are multi-layered. You find that there's a part of you that loves doing an honest day's work. And then there's a part of you that loves to lay around and be lazy and do a cruddy job at things and doesn't really try. And then there's a part of you that is a sexual deviant. There is a part of you that is intolerant of others, unkind, unwholesome. And these things lie dormant in you until they are brought out by the various circumstances that, again, are karmically based, karmically rooted. Mindfulness, meditation, and the pursuit of wisdom are the only things that will bring you able to see these different layers. I see anger in me. I'll give you an example. I would continue to deny it for years and finally recognize that within me is something that is incontent. And I see laziness in me. I find that I want to cut corners very often. I want to not do as good a job as I feel like I want to do. Whereas in my more optimistic moments, I send that right to the back of the mind. And I say, no, I'm good. I'm trying hard. I'm doing a lot. Who am I trying to convince? I'm not digging enough into those layers. And mindfulness creates the ability to see all of the hidden layers, the discontent, the desire for clinging and for lust, the desire to pursue all of the crooked things that you pursue in life and aren't mindful about. And of course, folks, if you're honest, the way you beat bad karma is by being mindful of it and by recognizing it and by seeing it for what it is. I don't care your spiritual tradition. I don't care your religion or lack thereof. I care about your ability to be completely in the moment, to be completely connected, and to be honest about what you are facing. You are an onion, and you have many layers to you. And to have all layers in alignment is to be a Buddha, a Christ, a being of full enlightenment. And this is why it is so hard to do to obtain full enlightenment or anything close to. This is why there are so many addictions and clingings and cravings and thoughts and bad motivations that run rampant in the human experience. James said, a man who stumbles not in word, the same as a perfect man. Most of the things that we think we say, and those are the things that get us in trouble. Matthew 6:22, Luke 11:35, Jesus says, take heed that the light that is in you be not darkness. The light of the body is the eye. And if your eye be full of darkness, your whole body is full of darkness. Titus 1:15, unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. But even their mind and conscience is defiled. That's one of my favorite scriptures, Titus 1:15. To the pure all things are pure. It's not about following rules, folks. It's not about following faith traditions. It's not about any of those things. It's about purity of mind. Just like being able to eat anything that is put in front of you, being content, all of that comes from purity of motive. And when you look at the character of Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or any of the saints, you start to realize this purity, that undefilement, where there's nothing holding you back because all of your layers are pure. That's the challenge here. You are an onion. Remember that. As we conclude, understanding getting rid of attachments is like hangers. Our attachments are hard to get rid of. There's a pile of hangers on the floor. You ever had a bag of hangers in your house? It's really hard to pick up one hanger because they all grab onto each other. It's like that. You find that your drinking problem came from your parent problem, came from the fact that you were always trying to make your mother happy because you didn't feel good enough, which created your overeating problem, which created the smoking problem. You find that all of this stuff is attached. And it's not as though you can just get rid of one thing because it involves a lot of self-diagnosis. It involves a lot of wisdom and understanding. Are you able to be in this world and to be completely detached? Easier said than done, right? But very often the things we look for are completely unwholesome. Look at Julian Glover in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the 1989 movie with Indiana Jones, and of course the villain Julian Glover is seeking the Holy Grail of Jesus Christ. And one of the most famous sayings of that movie was when he said, Hitler can have the world, but he can't take it with him. I remember thinking, man, that sounds so spiritual. But of course, this guy was as corrupt as anything because he thought that the veil of the drink of Christ, the blessed Holy Grail, was going to be a physical thing that would give physical life. I can remember thinking, and it was so obvious watching the movie, that what a vain effort. Wisdom isn't found in religion, folks. It's not found in faith. It's not found in worship of images or counting of beads. It isn't found in ritual. It is found in understanding, in getting rid of the theatrics, getting rid of the aesthetics, and attaining through mindfulness. And the problem is mindfulness is boring and it's not aesthetic. It means walking away from even what seems very wholesome, like religions and catechisms and quoting of scriptures. Even the Buddha himself warned about, he said, my words are like a snake, be careful how you grab them. Meaning, if you become religious, if you start to value your holiness, then you are clinging just as much as if you're clinging cupcakes or alcohol or something like that. We'll close with Sai Baba of Shirdi. Sai Baba of Shirdi was one of the wisest people of his time. He died in 1918. He made this quote in one of his last speeches: you seek too much information and not enough transformation. When understanding karma and rebirth, don't make the mistake of seeking information. Start to seek transformation. In other words, understand that even without information, you see the fruits of your essence, of who you were and who you will become, in the transformation that goes on in your own life. The tree is known by its fruits, and you are part of the ever-growing tree of life. Don't try to understand that. We do wrong by trying to seek out information to explain things, and that becomes another method of clinging, because we want to understand what it is, because we don't want to be had, which is a form of ego and pride. Let go of the information. You have enough. Instead, seek being who you are, which is the key to transformation. I hope this series has been a blessing to you.